Welcome back to our series about Game Developer's Guide to the Basics of Unity. For this video, we will be discussing about C-sharp scripting in Unity. This video is great for you to start learning to code in Unity. This is a breakdown of the scripting elements in Unity and some learning materials that you can use in future projects. Today, we will be talking about what a script is and define and explain what variables, functions, and classes are. What is a script? Scripts are written in a special language that Unity can understand. The language that we use in Unity is C Sharp. All the languages that Unity operates with are object-oriented scripting languages. Now, just a side tangent. What is object-oriented programming? Object-oriented programming is a paradigm or sort of style of programming that revolves around objects communicating with each other as opposed to functions operating on data structures. In easier terms, OOP focuses on what developers want to manipulate rather than how. OOP is based on four main principles: encapsulation, abstraction, inheritance, and polymorphism. We won't be diving into those topics, so let's just get back on track. Like any other programming language, scripts have a syntax or rules that determine how instructions are written, and the primary parts are called variables, functions, and classes. To create a script in Unity, right-click on the Project tab, go to Create, and click C# script. Let's just name this script as sample script, and let's open it up. As mentioned earlier, scripts have a syntax, and the primary parts of these syntax are called variables, functions, and classes. Variables hold values and references to objects. They hold something for us to use in the future. Scripts start by laying out the tools that you need at the top. This is done by declaring variables. Let's use these variables as examples. You can see there is a visibility keyword, followed by a variable type, and then the variable name. When declaring variables, there are two most important visibility types to remember: public and private. You can sort of guess what they do. A public variable is accessible to other scripts and other classes, and can be changed in the inspector from the Unity editor. So, this means people can access it and change its value. If the variable is private, this is not accessible as it can only be accessed within this particular script and within this particular class. There are many reasons to choose between private or public. Private variables allow your code to be cleaner, since you know that the value of those variables can be changed only inside that class. This makes debugging and maintaining the code easier. If you choose public, and you experience an issue, you need to look inside your whole code base in order to track the source, because any other object has access to that variable. However, if you want objects to communicate between themselves, you need some variables or functions to be public. A variable type defines what kind of value is the variable holding in memory: an integer, a string of text, a floating number, or more complex types like components in the Unity. It is important to give your variable their name. A variable name cannot start with a number, and it cannot contain spaces. A typical naming convention done is having the name start with a lowercase letter and add words without spaces starting with a capital letter like Maya Light. When Unity compiles the script, it makes public variables visible in the editor. Next are functions. Functions are collections of code that compare and manipulate variables. We organize code in functions so that it can be easily reused multiple times in different parts of the program. There are a number of functions that run automatically inside Unity. First is the awake function. Awake is called when the script is loaded, and it is the first method executed. Start function. Similar to awake, start is called before the first frame update. Use start for initializing variables or setting up references. Update function. Update is called every frame. This is where you put your code to define the logic that runs continuously, like animations, AI, and other parts of the game that need to be updated constantly. Fixed update function. It is called at a fixed time interval suitable for physics related calculations. Late update function. It is similar to update, but late update is called after all update functions have been called. For example, if you want your camera to follow the player, it should always be implemented here in the late update because it tracks objects that might have moved inside the function update. In writing functions, it should start with the return type at the beginning, either void, it could be int, a boolean, float, or anything, then followed by the name of the function that should start in an uppercase letter. Then the parameters inside the parentheses, if there is any. The body of the function is in between these curly braces. Classes are a way to structure code to wrap collections of variables and functions together to create a template that defines the properties of an object. This script is an example of a class. The class name must match the file name of the C# script for it to work. To be attached to a game object, it has to derive from another class called monoBehavior, which is automatically put there for you when you create a new script. You can create your own custom class inside a script, like this example below. But you have to ask to serialize it by typing system.serializable in solid braces before declaring the class, so that it will be converted into simple data that Unity can look at in the inspector.
Now, an additional lesson that I will
Scripting is primarily comparing these objects and their current states and values. It is based on logic, determining an outcome or resolution. Variables, functions, and classes are just the basics of starting
all of the
with coding
scripts
in
contain
Unity.
spaces like written
There are a
or
ton of
derivative
videos
that are
and guides on
combined
scripting
before
that will help you
using
learn
it
more
into
about
any
programming
system
from scratch.
collections.
On our next video, we will be showing
Other
you how to move your
namespaces
game
that we
object
can
in the
use
game by creating a very
are
simple
we're gonna
platform
use
video.
during this
See you next
whole
video.
series would be using Unity Engine.c management.
Scripting is
manage
primarily
dependencies,
comparing
using
these
PM
objects
Pro
and their
or
current
Backslash
states and
when
values.
using Unity
It is
Interface.
based on logic, determining an
You can create
outcome
your
or
own
resolution.
namespace by including
Variables,
your own
functions,
by
and classes
including
are
the
just
class
the
in that
basics of
namespace.
starting with coding in Unity.
By typing namespace
There are a ton
and
of
then
videos
the
and guides on
namespace. For now,
scripting
the
that will help you
sample
learn more
namespace.
about programming from scratch.
You
On our next
enclose the
video,
existing
we will be
class
showing you how to
in
move your
between
game
the
object in the
namespaces,
game by
curly
creating a
braces.
very
So,
simple platforming video.
just include your
See you next
system
video.
class there, and you can call it on another script by doing
Scripting
using
is
sample
primarily
namespace.
comparing
Just
these
using
objects
and
and
then
their
the name
current
of your
states and
namespace.
values. Scripting is primarily comparing these objects and their current states and values. It is based on logic, determining an outcome or resolution. Variables, functions, and classes are just the basics of starting with coding in Unity. There are a ton of videos and guides on scripting that will help you learn more about programming from scratch. On our next video, we will be showing you how to move your game object in the game by creating a very simple platforming video. See you next video.